Hello, my loves. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Dustina. This is Boujee Astrology, and we are going to take a deeper look at the aspects going on between Jupiter and Saturn. Now, for those that are not familiar with these, this is a meditative rant video. This is not like my weekly transits. This is not like my monthly energy. This is something very, very different where I try to educate people and pull in some information as to why I keep saying certain themes in regards to like where we're at as a collective, but also to kind of bring some stuff from the past back to the forefront to kind of remind everybody why we are in the places that we are right now. So, a lot of what we're going to be talking about has to do with Jupiter and Saturn. Because right now, we are currently at a turning point in their energy for a cycle that actually started back in 2020. And a lot of people don't necessarily put that together. We're not thinking about that right now. And it's very easy for some people to be like, well, before 2020, because they're thinking of it from the COVID perspective. And there was enough things about COVID that was in the charts that a lot of astrologers actually knew what was going to happen. Not to the extent that it came through. They just knew that something big was coming um, from that timeline. Now we're in a shifted focus as to what has come through for the collective mentally since that time frame. So before we can actually understand where we're at right now, we need a little bit of a history lesson. Jupiter and Saturn have 200-year cycles. It's really like 180 to 200, but most astrologers call it a 200-year cycle. And that is their conjunctions happen in the same element for 200 years, air quotes, 200 years, and then they switch to the next element. Now, what do I mean by element? I mean earth, water, fire. You get my drift? Okay. Air. We happen to be in air right now. And it started in 2020. But before then, the collective conjunctions that had been had with Saturn and Jupiter had been in earth signs, with one asterisk that happened in the 1980s, and I will cover that here in a minute. But I'm more focused on the bigger, like longevity of the timelines, and that is we go through 200-year cycles. The reason we are at a turning point currently in regards to this first 200-year cycle, so we are 4 years into a 200-year cycle, is because this did happen in air signs. And the one thing that I could think that a lot of us can agree to is not only have we had the technology growth, but there has been deep seated awakenings of the intellect that have occurred since 2020. Think about it in this perspective. The word narcissist became a very big word after 2020. The idea of understanding where we needed to do certain amounts of trauma healing in regards to not only our past, but the generational healing that goes back hundreds of years, multiple generations. There's a reason that so many people became aware of that in just the last few years compared to the centuries before. And that is the activation of Saturn and Jupiter that occurred in 2020. Their conjunction occurred at 0 degrees of Aquarius on December 21st. We're 4 years past that. The reason that this is a turning point from that vibration is because of where Jupiter is now in the sky, going through multiple squares to Saturn. And please note I said multiple. In August of this year, specifically August 19th, this is whenever it was the most exact, we had our first square between Saturn and Jupiter. And I didn't harp on this vibration back then, but what I kept saying is like, we're at the start of a bunch of things that are going to shift and get shooken up, and a bunch of things that are going to kind of hit the fan. And a lot of changes are going to come after this timeline, and they're going to continue to rumble through until the spring of 2025. Hey, guess what we're about to go into, guys? The spring of 2025. Okay. Everybody's on the same page. As a collective, we're shifting away and breaking old traditions. Now, for some people, that is literally coming through in their workplaces, and there are shifts around old idealism and holding people accountable in a whole different way, not being willing to sit still and settle and just be quiet and go home at the end of the day and cry it out. No. You're going to cross this boundary. I'm going to push your boundaries. I'm going to push for things to be seen differently. I will not allow for you to go through whatever you want to go through without accepting accountability for your actions. The intellectual awareness that has come through, the awakening of the intellect that has come through since 2020 is directly attributed to Saturn and Jupiter. Their vibration is not done. On August 19th, we had the first square. This week during Christmas, most specifically December 24th, we had our second exact square. But we're still in it right now at the time that I'm recording this. I had every intention to record this last week, but Saturn has also been tap dancing on my natal moon, and the downloads and everything else has been so, I couldn't focus. I was vibrating too much to be able to do this. I'm still kind of vibrating now, but I'm in a better place than where I was a week ago. The intellectual awareness of what we're no longer willing to settle for. Now we have one more square that needs to occur between Saturn and Jupiter, and it's going to occur next summer, specifically June 15th. There's a reason I keep saying in the weekly podcast about we're at this point of splitting and splintering and going in different directions and moving in different vibrations and going all of these different ways. A rethinking, a reshaping, and the need for a certain amount of disruption right now, because again, the way that we used to do things is no longer acceptable. Now, some people through these final weeks of December are going to come to terms, and they will have amicable separations. I say amicable loosely. Some people are going to fight it. Some people are not going to do well in this energy. Some people are going to go on a rampant, grotesque rant over social media or whatever platform, the Twitter, the yeah, I know I said it as the, and I know it's not called Twitter anymore, but I don't care. I still call it Twitter. Elon's weird. Going on to whatever platform it is to rant about how people have been done wrong and how people have been done dirty and how this should have went a different way and I should have got what I wanted and this is what I deserved. And the level of butthurt that's about to come through because some people did not get their way is going to be very, very real. That's not the case for everybody. So let's be clear about that. And some people are going to have to go through a level of rethinking, repurposing, and reshaping of an area of their life, going through a certain amount of healing. If you've been at a company long enough, deeply high up in companies long enough, leaving a place that you've dedicated years of your life to, you go through a mourning period. You go through a period that feels like a breakup. And you have to like shake that out of your system. People don't think this way, but it's the truth. Some of the biggest trauma that people never resolve in their life is in their career. It's with their boss. It's that toxic environment that we stick ourselves into, and we just feel compelled to stick in the mud deep because we're afraid if we don't put up with it, we're not going to be able to pay our bills. The problem with that mentality is the fact that it doesn't work anymore. And the thing about where we are now in regards to technology, where we are now in regards to our lives, nobody has to settle for just working for a person who's no longer going to respect us, that's not going to appreciate what we do, that's not going to give us decency, that's not going to give us the proper time of day to do exactly what we need to do and be seen in the way that we deserve to be seen. We don't have to settle for that anymore. You can leave one day, walk outside, and go start a business. Is it a business that you necessarily love? Not really. Doesn't have to be. But anyone with any level of an entrepreneurial spirit can walk out of a door and immediately go create a new job. And that's not normal. Our parents didn't necessarily have that capability. Our grandparents, even more so. There is a gift by being in the age that we are in now that generations before us did not have. That gift is a tool set. It's a knowledge set. Again, an awakening of the intellect that has occurred that can problem solve our way out of any situation if we just try. We don't have to settle for less anymore. And a lot of what's speaking between Saturn and Jupiter is exactly that. Now, Saturn right now is in Pisces, and he has been since March of 2023. While being in Pisces, there has been deep-seated wounds that have needed to be healed, deep-seated emotions that needed to be understood, and an over-romanticizing of the past that needed to be reviewed, regrounded, dealt with in a new way. Saturn has put a bit of a reality check to an area that does not always favor reality, but it's been a necessary reality check. Now, currently, Saturn is being hosted by both Neptune and Jupiter. Now, Neptune has a very interesting part of this energy, but I'm not focused on Neptune right now. I need to just do a future episode of just Neptune. Right now, I'm focused on Jupiter. Jupiter hosting that Saturn while being in its detriment as a collective is putting a lot of people back down to bottom levels. Being in places where we don't feel comfortable, we can feel a little sticky icky, trying to get out of a muck, but also understanding that there are lessons involved with where we've been, how we've been settling, what we've been doing, what we're willing to continue to accept, and what we're not. Jupiter's healing the mind while being in Gemini. And the things that we are communicating with Jupiter and Gemini are big. Jupiter's mass. They're bold. Jupiter does not settle for less. Big ideas, bold thoughts, bold work is going to speak volumes for how we can progress from here. The significance of Saturn and Jupiter meeting in the air sign that they did back in 2020 was that it was going to have a long-term effect on society. It was a 0-degree conjunction that happened in Aquarius. Fixed air, long-term effect. And currently, during the Saturn-Jupiter squares, who's been dancing over that 0-degree mark of Aquarius? Pluto. Pluto. Pushing for the trauma dumping, pushing for us to look at a new perspective, pushing for us to overcome our fears, overcome that past, and step into something differently. The way that we are attracted to people is no longer the same. Before, it was almost carnal for some people, like it was only the physical. And now, more often than not, a lot of people are very much the way I've always been in this one regard. I'm attracted to energy. I'm not attracted to the body. You could be the sexiest man or woman in the room, but if you're dumber than a box of rocks and I can't hold a conversation with you, this ain't going to work. The awakening of the intellect has also let us know that we need a certain amount of mental energy in regards to whoever we're sharing our space with. The problem of that has made us realize so few people are on the same wavelength intellectually. And that's a big part of why purging so many people has been necessary over the last few years. I'm not putting dates to that. I'm not. But it's the truth. There's been a lot of purging of people, purging of loved ones, purging of our families. Because again, the vibration is not what it used to be. We're searching for something bigger, bigger than us, bigger than our day to day. And it's very easy to be looking at the sky and reading the stars, waiting for certain things to align, and believing in certain dreams. Strong minds can later create stronger vibrations. And there is a later. The first half of 2025, oh, there's a later. But we still have situations that we have to deal with. We still have a little bit of unfinished business per se, but we still have a lot more necessary reshaping, redoing, reorganizing to come. We've just been at coming to terms with the middle stage of something. For many people, what has started to erupt into right now, I've said it so many times, it can go back to the summer, it can go back to the springtime. Most intensely, those two. For some people, it goes back even further. That's a very different conversation. But for most of us, what is unfolding right now, what's leveling up, what's splitting apart, what's changing, what's taking shape, it is not just happening overnight. It's been quite a long time in the making. Now, the previous 200-year cycle was in Earth signs: Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn. The current one is air signs: Aquarius, Gemini, and Libra. Now, the one little asterisk to the previous cycle happened in 1980. Because we had one little fluke whenever it came to Saturn and Jupiter. And that occurred, I've got it here, December 31st of 1980. That's when it was the most exact. And some people from that time frame have that in their chart. They know they have it. And what I've noticed about those people and the people that were born after that is intellectually, they desire different things than the people that came before. Now, one of the things that was very interesting to me whenever I was researching that timeline of the 1980s is all of these inspired tech companies that were trying to do different things whenever Uranus was going through Libra, and then later Pluto, Saturn, and Jupiter all came into Libra, was these initial tech companies that were well placed in their charts from the 1970s had a bit of a blow up in the 1980s. They had their glow up. They had their next phase coming through. We can talk about that. We can talk about Microsoft. We can talk about Apple. There was big growths and changes in technology. The first waves of needing computers started to come through in the 80s after that last Saturn Jupiter conjunction that occurred in that air sign. But again, that one was a fluke. We had major technological shifts that came through, but we also had major intellectual shifts. Other things that started to happen in the 1980s that were very, very necessary was the forethought to actually pay attention to the chemicals that people have been mining for years and realizing, oh, some of this stuff can kill you. And things like the EPA came after that. New regulations in regards to how we did certain things in the workplace started to come through. There was a whole different level of awakening that happened in the 1980s. But in the intellectual growth, it kind of stagnated after that. Because again, we were still in an earth cycle. And things went back to, what can we produce? Where can we make the money? Where can we be the most productive? Where can we do these things? We're not in that mindset anymore. And the people that have been born since the 1980s, they're not in that mindset anymore. We're far more aware that our mental energy impacts our nervous system than any generation before. Oh, you can just suppress all of that angst and frustration. All you got to do is go to work. How's that doing for you? How did that really do for grandpa? How did that really do for your parents? Didn't do very well for a lot of people. So finally working through the things that mentally held us back has become a bigger part of the forefront. It's been a bigger part of where we're at as a collective. Generationally, there is more effort towards knowledge in the mind now than ever before. The problem is we're still at the beginning stages. There's still a lot of work to do. There's a lot of growth and a lot of change that needs to follow. And that takes me into what we start to deal with in 2025 and 2026. There's a good 6-month window between the second Saturn Jupiter square and the third one. And the transitional energy that occurs between the second and third one is magnanimous. Mars is retrograde. Immediately following Mars's retrograde, we're going to go into eclipse season, Venus retrograde, Mercury retrograde on top of Venus retrograde, and Neptune going into Aries. Now, whenever I think back to the last time Neptune was in this area of the sky, I can see certain political belief commonalities from one timeline to the next that I do not want to get into in this conversation because it's going to really bother a lot of people. And the thing is, there's no way to outdo it. There's no control over the way certain people are going to behave and believe. And I don't just mean that in the spiritual sense, by the way. There's a laundry list. But one of the things that I have really picked up on is that whenever we go into 2025, there is going to be the need and shift into new industries. New industries. Yes, new technology. AI is kind of helping with that. I think people blow AI out of proportion compared to where it needs to be. The possibilities are there. I don't think that we're quite as there as everybody thinks that we are. There's still some growth and necessity there. Medical technology, biotech. That's going to start to get really big whenever we get into 2025 and 2026. And I'm seeing that as the start. So much of Saturn going through Pisces, again, it's putting reality, a reality check, if you will, a certain amount of stringent, strain, stagnant for some, regard to the areas that Pisces rules. Well, Pisces is a healer. First and foremost, Pisces is a healer. It's healing from everything before to regenerate into that next cycle, that next event. If you put that into a more modern concept, that's medicine. That takes me back into, I see growth in regards to that area of industry, medical, medicine, medical science, biotech, that type of industry is going to start to really grow and change when we start to get into 2025 and 2026. Many people are looking for their next step. They're looking for what to do next, where they're going next, how they do the next thing. And they're stuck. They feel stagnant. That's not going to last much longer. And I said this to a few of you whenever it's come to our individual sessions, but I'm saying this now in a bigger way for everyone to hear. For many of the people that are feeling stuck right now, where you go next might not exist yet. It's in infancy. It's in a baby stage. It's in a place that has not come full circle quite yet. That doesn't mean that it won't. It's just where you're going to go needs to be built. Some of you will do the building. Some of you will become your own boss. Going back to the stuff that I was saying at the beginning. As opposed to sitting still and taking abuse from a boss that you can't stand. Having credit for your ideas being taken by somebody that does not appreciate you. Having to feel in this lower level. That's going to go away. And many of you are at the brink of starting your new path. You're still looking for the answer in something or in someone else. And I'm telling you, for many of you, that's not the answer. The answer for many of you is that it's within you. Now, the thing about why I'm putting so much emphasis on this is because I want to really focus on Aries. Aries is ruled by Mars, god of war. I'm going to charge head first, take all the action. I'm going to win the battle. No prisoners. Let's get it. Hoorah. Let's go. Let's go. We're about to go into a very big phase of Aries. And one element of the Aries transits that's coming is the final Saturn-Jupiter square. The first two occurred in Pisces and Gemini. The next one will be in a different place. By then, Jupiter will have moved into Cancer. That specifically happens June 9th. And Saturn will move into Aries. Their square will perfect on June 15th. The next 6 months for us as a collective is overcoming the past, letting go of the things that no longer serve us, moving away from an old dynamic, and looking ahead at something new. Now, for some people, the new is just going into new territory. If you've been self-employed for years, you might be going to looking at working for a business, but your knowledge and your experience speaks so much in volumes that it would make up for any kind of missing degree. The avenue is so large. For other people, if you have been stuck in a dead-end job forever and you feel like you have to get out of it, any pull, magnetic pull in certain directions that you're going into, going back to school, going into a trade school, not like a traditional school, but a trade school, something where you get hands-on experience. These are all really good things to look at. because they're going to potentially take you somewhere, take you to that next spot, take you into that new industry. For even fewer, you will be the ones creating it. And those that are in the creation mode, I want to be absolutely clear. The idea has been there for a while. The drive, the itch, it's been there for a while. It ain't new. Something you've been sitting on. Well, I don't know if I could do this or if I can make it work. And it's just so scary. And it's just, oh my God, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know that I'm smart enough to do this. Think about Aries placements. They don't really care if they're smart enough to do it. They're going to fake it until they make it. They charge headfirst into anything, and they're going to make something work. If you have a desire to do something, it's time to look at charging headfirst into something new. Because the volumes that speak and come through once we get into that final square speaks towards building new industry, like I said, new passion, new all the way through, that will grow and evolve and change into something much bigger than most of us can even start to perceive. Tech companies are going to be big. Biotech companies are going to be big. New growth in regards to pharmaceutical, it's going to be big. But there's still also that need for trades, that people that actually know how to work with their hands. Sitting in an office is not where the money is anymore. A lot of people struggle with that one. It's like, well, I don't really know how to do anything else. I've done bookkeeping forever. Cool, go bookkeep for another company. One that's going to be a little bit better off for you. Sometimes the new is just going into the new field, going into the new industry, but still working with the same old stuff. I don't want to take away from that. But I want people that have been feeling stagnant to understand opportunity is coming. You don't have to continue to feel so stuck. There is growth, there is change, and there is huge amounts of mental expansion given Jupiter's placement in Gemini. And one of the things that I've been picking up on for a while is the eclipse axis has been preparing for Neptune and Saturn to go into Aries. Jupiter has been preparing for Uranus to go into Gemini. Over the next 2 years, we have so much that's going to be moving into new signs. I mean it when I say the things that have been weighing you down, holding you back, anchoring you to the past, they're not going to matter the same way, because as a collective, as a whole, we're going into a different direction. We're going into a different industry. We're going into a different path. We're going to be focused on different things once we get into 2025. Now, some of you immediately know what you're doing. You already know day one, new me, new this, new company. Yeah. And there will be a lot of people this year that they want to do new year, new me. You are way better off this time compared to the last two. The last 2 New Years, new year, new me stuff. No, not nearly the same as where we're going this year. Of what we'll be building into this year. There is so much growth and so much change that is coming. And when Saturn makes his way into Aries, which, to be clear, he makes 2 dips in Aries, one in 2025, the final one in 2026. When Saturn starts to make these dips into Aries, there is the start of so much new in regards to regulation, rules, government. I'm going off what Saturn rules, but also control. And again, for a lot of people, this is going to speak to new people starting new industries, new ideas coming to life, being built, the pioneering spirit of doing something that's never been done before. Some of us are going to be a part of another person's bigger picture. Some of us are going to be building the next big picture. Now, in the current stage of Saturn and Jupiter, for us to reach the alignment of what we will be doing next, building next, going into next, splits, separation, moving in different directions, going down different paths right now, making these hard decisions right now are necessary. Some people will not do well. I'm not going to sugarcoat that and make pretend like that everything will be great. I'm not going to do that. Some people will make mistakes. They're going to make mistakes along the way. Mistakes can be necessary, again, to learn lessons. For some people, what happens over these next few months will be their karma. It'll be your karma, my karma, their karma. People that have done the work are going to do well. People that are trying to hold on to old vibrations, old ways of doing things, the negative side of the ego, they will not do well. But there's been a reason for all the weight, the pushing, the tests. And when I mean weight, I don't mean time, I mean pressure. The actual weight of the energy, feeling like the world is on your shoulders. That weight, that push, that pressure, the testing that has been here has all been necessary to push for the separations that need to happen, to drive the wedge into place. We put up a fence. That's not a border joke, but it could be a border joke. It's more like property line in my head, but I realize that some people will be like, Dusty, that sounds like a wall. I know. I wasn't trying to do that. We put up a fence to separate. Separation will be necessary in a lot of ways to get prepared for where we're going next, because so much of this energy is about a course correction. Now, one of the other reasons I waited to the end of this week to do this energy, to do this episode and talk about this energy, is because all of this week around Christmas, holidays be damned, has been people coming to terms with things, realizing we're not going to go backwards. Grandma's not here anymore. Grandpa's not here anymore. We're never going to have Christmas at mom's house ever again. We have to build new traditions, new paths, new ways of doing things. And for a lot of people, there's been this internal aspect of everything over the last week. Some people are having separations in their relationships. We're too different now. We can't get on the same page. Intellectually, we're not on the same wavelength. We can't communicate in a way that is good for both of us. Some people will be pushing hard to try to do the work and overcome. And I wish you the best. However, as a collective, this energy is about separation, not necessarily about doing our best. So be aware of that. Now, some of the commitments that are being made, because there have been commitments, have a long-term vibration a part of them, a long-term hope involved. And the only thing I don't like about the Christmas season is relationships. And I've been super clear about that with everybody. I don't like the second half of this year for new relationships. Unless you have a stationing Mars in your chart or a Mars retrograde in your chart, I don't like it. Because I feel like a lot of people are going to be putting a volatile imprint into their relationship moving forward that's not necessary. The focus should be more in regards to where we're going next with open space for how that's going to look. Now, if you are in a new relationship, I'm wishing you the best. If you are newly engaged, I'm wishing you the best. I'm hoping for the best. But I'm realistic about this energy. I'm realistic about what I see as a collective. I'm also realistic about what I've seen firsthand in the past. This vibration is not good for a lot of people whenever it comes to relationships. It just is what it is. Now, as a whole, I do feel like there's going to be another round of technological growth that's coming. Yes, we've had AI. There's something bigger than this. There is. And again, it's going to come into that industry growth. But I also feel like there's still going to be another round of shakeups, especially in business sectors, that are going to pull things down, at least temporarily, before everything inflates back up. And that's going to be a big part of February, March, and April. There is a shakeup coming, a final round of shakeups that are a direct result to how the Mars retrograde will end. That's going to get into a different conversation. Like I said, this is a meditative rant, and I wanted to stay focused more on the Saturn-Jupiter cycle, and that we are right now at a turning point in the first 4 years of the cycle since that conjunction. Now, if you have your natal Saturn-Jupiter in a conjunction in your chart, a lot of this energy is going to be testing you. If you are one of the people that were born in that late part of 1980, the first part of 1981, that you actually have the Saturn-Jupiter in Libra, then you're going to start to see an intellectual shift in regards to some of the people that you communicate with that you did not have the ability to connect to before. It's like people will start to intellectually start to catch up with you. And they're going to continue to do that all the way until the next Saturn-Jupiter conjunction, which the next one, ironically enough, is going to be in Libra. And it's going to happen October 31st of 2040. It's a long time away. But for those that have been feeling pushback over the years, over the decades, that people just are not on the same intellectual wavelength as you, you're correct. But that's changing. If you as an individual think back to what has changed in regards to how you process things mentally, how you make decisions, what's valid and valuable to you, comparing it now to where it was 10 years ago, it's a night and day difference. You're not the same person. You're not meant to be the same person. We change, we evolve, we grow. So if you are the person that is recognizing that you have changed, that you have grown, and you have healed, then you should also be able to recognize there is a reason certain things need to be left behind. A lot of this week and this vibration is coming to terms with what we're going to keep, what we're letting go of, what we're willing to accept, and what we will no longer be a part of. A lot of the vibration speaks to shifts and separation. Big separations to allow for other things to come together. That's a lot of where we're at in the energy. And it's going to be an exponential shift for many people over the course of the next 6 months. I'm telling you, once we get into second and third quarter of 2025, your focus, your pattern, your needs are going to be different. They're not the same as what they are right now. They're not going to be the same as what they have been. The topic is going to change. The desire is going to change. What's important to you will also be changing. You're in the middle of change right now. As a collective, we all are. And that's okay. But if you're feeling that shift internally, good. You're supposed to. If you're making big moves externally, good. You're supposed to. There is a shift in what we are working on and what we're working through between now and next summer, when we get to the third and final Jupiter-Saturn square, which will be in different signs that speak to new ambitions. And everything in this time frame is a corrective action to get us into that placement. That's where we're going next. So I hope this helps. Okay. Again, meditative rants are a little bit different. I don't go real heavy on the dates backwards and forwards. It's more along the lines of tying some things together, things that have been coming through in my meditation, and putting everybody into alignment with that energy. So I love and appreciate every single one of you. I will talk to everybody very, very, very soon. Subscribe.